We live in a unique situation, I think in the military culture and in the Marine Corps. We as artists are given only minimal guidelines. We are told, go to war and do art. And our main job is to document the Marines' activity. And it can be anything from the air wing to the artillery to the food service, and also out on a patrol or out on a convoy. When we go out into an AO, an area of operations, we carry with us all of our gear. We have all of the things that a Marine's going to carry. In addition to that, we also have our sketching gear, our art gear, and it'll be in a little bag. I have some pencils in there. I have with me my camera. I have watercolors, things that are portable. And therefore, the work we do reflects that. It's sketches, quick sketches from life. It's watercolors on scene when things are slowed down enough that you can paint something. When we come back to the studio, we are painting or drawing in a larger format. We're using materials that take longer to dry or to prepare, and so we can do things in the studio that we could never do when we're out in the field. I think the main difference between a painting of combat and a photograph of combat is that there's something, I think, more in a painting that's gone through the process of thought and feeling, and it's gone through the filter of the artist and onto the canvas or onto the paper that a camera just can't do. And I think people connect to that. I think we've always connected to that. The painting can be thought over and mused upon, and there are certain things that the artist can take from his experience, from his sketches of the experience. Even if he has photographs of the experience, he can take that and he can adjust it a little bit to where it speaks in the visual language of a painting. And there's something that in the human touch that adds something to an image that a camera, being a machine, can't quite do. I think one of my favorites is the scene. It's called A Little Light Reading, Marines enjoying their morning, and it's in Iraq, and they had several little forward operating bases or patrol bases that they had. And these young Marines had just gotten up and they were talking and sitting around this fire. They actually had to build a fire because it was starting to get cold in the mornings. I saw it. I immediately had to go get my art gear and start taking pictures and sketching because it was one of those things visually that struck me immediately. The composition was there. The light was cascading down on them through the cami netting and bouncing off the HESCO barrier walls. The scene itself was compelling to me because it was a slice of life in these Marines' lives, and it wasn't something you'd assume a combat artist would paint, but it was something that I think the American people may want to see. You know, they may want to see how their sons and daughters act in their sort of living arrangements. When I was a kid, my brother and I would sculpt out of clay for hours on end, as well as doodling and sketching. Just using modeling clay to sculpt whatever we could do. A lot of times it was, tanks and different things, then we destroy them and then, create them again. But formally, I've just done it in the last year and a half, 2 years, and so I'm still new at it. It is a totally different medium. It's a totally different way of doing things. I think it also depicts things in a way that is it's more tactile, as they say, and as a viewer, people can see it from different angles, and maybe that can immerse them in it a little more. Sculpture definitely has a life to it when it's done well. It seems to come alive even more than perhaps a painting would do, and that would be the difference I see between the sculpture and the painting. When I look back at older combat art, it really does, it makes me connect to those people. And one thing I hope that people see in my work, in the combat art that I've done, is what were Marines like in that era? What did they wear? I want historians to be able to say, oh, okay, I see how they were wearing that cartridge belt or that body armor. I want the family members of people who served to say, oh, that's what Uncle Billy must have done, and I want them to relate to it. I love the fact that the Marine Corps cherishes its story and it cherishes its history. It wants to take care of that history. I'm proud that the Marine Corps also values traditional methods of telling that story. That's where we come in. Not just to be a Marine, but be a Marine who is part of this great tradition of combat art and telling the Marine Corps story for generations to come.